The World Anti-Doping Agency says that every Olympic Games since London 2012 has been corrupted by Russia's sports ministry. WADA says that more than 1,000 Russian athletes have been involved in a state-sponsored doping program for the last 5 years. Athletes cheated anti-doping tests with the help of medical and sports staff by swapping urine and blood samples. Richard McLaren, who led the investigation, called the doping unprecedented.
Over 1,000 Russian athletes competing in summer, winter, and Paralympic sport can be identified as being involved in or benefiting from manipulation to conceal positive doping tests. We've provided information to the international federations on 600 summer sports athletes, 95 winter sports athletes. So the percentage breakdown between international federations is 84% of the summer sports and 16% are winter sports.
Well, let's get more on this now from TRT World sports correspondent Samantha Johnson, who joins me now live in the studio. Sam, the press conference is actually still ongoing from Richard McLaren.
I know.
He was accused in the summer, in part one of his report, of not making his evidence public and not outlining his allegations in enough detail. But he's done that today, hasn't he? What exactly has he just had to say?
Well, just to go through what he's actually said, they've examined 1,166 pieces of proof, which includes emails and documents. So as we've just seen there, over 1,000 Russian athletes have, over 30 sports have benefited from the doping program, and it is widespread. It includes the top coaches, the top athletes, and it's from 2011 to 2015. And the biggest line from this press conference so far is that the Russians corrupted the London Games on an unprecedented scale. And to many, many athletes, that's just going to be heartbreaking to know that the person that you're lining up against is a part of a scheme that's, you know, giving them an edge over you unjustly.
And how high up the chain did it go? We've heard the name Vitaly Mutko, who is Russia's sports minister. It's the sports ministry was heavily involved in this.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be implicated in this because he's been the sports minister. And if he's overseeing all of this, then I suppose we just have to wait and see what his reaction is going to be. But like McLaren said, this was a disciplined medal-winning strategy and conspiracy. You've got to remember as well, they've got World Championship, they've got the World Cup coming to the country as well, so all eyes will be on this country. McLaren also said that he doesn't know how far this goes or how deep it goes, and we don't even know if it will ever come out. So Russia have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, he's detailing it from 2011 to 2015, isn't he? Sam, thank you very much. Well, let's get more on this. It's unfolding, this story. It's developing as we speak. Let's go to Moscow, joined by Daria Bondarchuk, who joins us from the Russian capital. It's quite a damning indictment, isn't it, for the Russian sports ministry, this, Daria?
Yes, indeed, as it implicates over 1,000 Russian athletes who have been benefiting from this system that Professor McLaren calls a government-sponsored and a government-installed system of doping in sports. In particular, in addition to earlier revelations that were published in July and have caused the blanket ban for Russian Paralympic team from the competitions in Rio, and also the suspension of Russia's track and field team from Rio Games. Now, these new revelations add and deepen those that investigation that was carried out earlier, and implicates several more athletes from the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games and London Games as well. In particular, the McLaren's report says that at Sochi Games, 2 Russian female ice hockey players had their urine samples tampered with and replaced with male urine samples, and that samples of 4 Russian gold medal winners in Sochi were tampered with. And further on, the investigation carried out by Professor McLaren indicates that, in fact, this was a system that was put in place by the government and run by the Russian sports ministry, as Professor McLaren cited some emails indicated that there were requests to the sports ministry asking what to do with samples that revealed doping was used, whether to save or quarantine them. So this report adds more on and suggests that the scale of this doping system and the fraud in Russian sports is difficult to evaluate at this point, and that it has in fact undermined the system that was in place and also undermined the results of the London Olympics as well.
Daria, since the initial part of the WADA report was released in the summer, the sports minister, Vitaly Mutko, has actually been promoted to deputy prime minister. Has there been any official response from Moscow to today's accusations, or is it just a bit too early at this stage?
It's a bit too early, as the press conference is still ongoing and just wrapping up. But there's been some replies from the head of one of the sporting associations, who said that this is no news for Russia, that Russians are being accused of this doping. It's been a while, and Russia has previously dismissed reports as lacking evidence. But on the other hand, Russia did take some steps to show it is fighting against doping. It is trying to improve its doping culture, and there's been a law that has been passed recently strengthening the punishment, making it more severe for doping and for doctors or sports officials who try to set up a doping system. But these changes came more than a year after the initial doping scandal broke out, and like Professor McLaren said, it's no surprise to him, at least, that when answering questions of reporters at the end of his initial speech, he said it was no surprise that Russian sports minister Vitaly Mutko had been promoted since the scandal, despite the very serious allegations that were brought up against a Russian sports ministry and Russian sports officials who have been implicated in McLaren's report.
Okay, Daria, thank you.